like we're live. All righty. Well, good morning, Grace. Good to see you. How are you today? I'm so excited.
I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And before we get going, I wanted to, say good morning and let those people who are going to hop on, most people hop on my Facebook Live on the replay, and wanted to say what we're going to do today. We're so excited to have Grace Gilrane featuring our new local author. And Grace is going to tell us all about her writing journey and give us a little intro of how she got started. So thank you so much for joining us, Grace. And I just wanted to give a shout out to moms who are watching this, especially in the replay. Grace, I get a lot of views on, people will be watching tonight. Perhaps they'll be watching before the big Georgia game. And moms out there, and even teens, if you feel that your son or daughter has any kind of a writing voice, please listen in. Please feel free to post a comment. And at the end of our interview today, Grace is going to graciously let any of you know how you can get a hold of her if you'd like to have a deeper dive conversation about really how to help encourage your teens reach the level that Grace has with her writing. So thank you again. Welcome to Grace. If you are watching now, please say hello. Please post a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're watching on the replay, same thing. You can even type in #replay and ask Grace any questions because she is the expert. So proud of you, Grace. So the first question I have is just please tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are now, and give us a little background on how you got here. Grace Gilrane, new aspiring local author.
um, so I am just about to start my second semester freshman year at Loyola University, Maryland. And total writing enrichment was a part of my college application process.
Thank you.
But but I also just published my first book, All the President's Men, on Amazon. It's a sort of self-published. I'm not exactly sure what we're calling it these days. Writing has been a big part of my life, I think, for a while now. And it starts in schools. It starts with teachers, saying, okay, we're going to do a creative writing exercise, and say, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do this. This is annoying. Why do I have to? And they're like, oh, wait, this is actually fun. And I kind of enjoy doing this, and maybe I could be good at it. And, over the years, it sort of worked its way from school into my own personal life. And then I, kind of decided maybe this is what I want to do. But now
there
this
it is.
exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Grace, you just said something so interesting, which you actually do all the time. I mean, for those of us watching, Grace spoke and read from her beautiful novel to a large group of wonderful guests over the weekend. And I was taking notes on things that you said, Grace. And this is part of your artistic craft, that a lot of times when we have these natural gifts, we just kind of giggle and shrug our shoulders because it's part of who you are. But before we go any further, let's dive into something you just said, because it is so beautiful and you probably don't even realize it, right? Are you sitting here like, oh my gosh, Mrs. Haskell, like what did I say? But what you just said, and this will speak to a lot of teens, to a lot of parents with kids that sometimes perhaps they've seen glimpses of brilliance, glimpses of their own creativity. And what you said was, when I was in grade school, I'd get, your typical writing assignment. Sometimes it was creative writing. Sometimes, probably a lot of times, it was lit analysis, right? Like writing about a book. And at first you said you'd roll your eyes. You'd say, oh no, another writing assignment. Here we go. And then you said something interesting. You said once you started, it actually did become fun. Once you started, and my question to you is, if you can remember, what was that point of the spark of your creativity? What was that turning point from, another assignment to, I might really like that. Like, can you go back in your mind as to, was it a specific assignment, a specific teacher? How old were you?
I know I did mention on Saturday when we had our little book launch party that it's like everybody has that teacher. Everybody has
Mhm.
that teacher that, they're the reason, like your social studies teacher is the reason that you went into politics, or your math teacher is the reason that you did this, and your science teacher is the reason you're a doctor.
Mhm.
Um, I, my fourth grade teacher, Mr. Denis, he is just, I think of all of like my education so far, he's kind of my favorite.
Okay.
And he also was in my life at a very formative time. He was the last teacher I ever had living in New Jersey before moving to Charlotte.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and so, he was just super like dynamic and it never felt like class was like, okay, we're going to do this worksheet and then we're going to read this and then whatever.
Mm.
In science projects, we're like making things, and
Mm. Mhm.
um, he really he was very into like literature from what I remember.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
probably am remembering completely wrong, but
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
he loved like Edgar Allan Poe, and there was a lot of creativity, I think, just in that classroom in
In
general.
the
And so
classroom. Mhm. Mhm.
I I think I'd probably still have like the composition notebook of, I don't remember what the assignment was, but I do know for
Yeah.
sure that whatever story that I had to write,
Mhm.
the year prior, so I'm one of 5 cousins, and we're all
Mhm.
fairly close in age, and so
Mhm.
we're probably, from, like, ages, like, 7 to 9, and my uncle decided that we were all gonna go into New York City the night before Thanksgiving and watch, them blow up the Thanksgiving Day parade balloons, and
Mhm.
it was a total circus, and, um, because you have little kids, and then it's Manhattan, and there's a billion people, and um, it just was like one of those stories that like you're
Right.
like, this is like a core memory. And
Yeah.
so I started writing that as for whatever assignment, and I was like, wait, this is like it's funny. That was something too that um,
Mhm.
I never want to write something that's like too dark where you don't get to have at least one good laugh in the book.
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
it's just funny, and I can picture what the apartment looks like, and that's what I'm
Mhm.
describing. So I know what I'm doing
Mm.
there, and I know the people in the story, and so I can
Mhm.
talk about them there, and that I think was good because I didn't have to make anything up that I didn't know.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm. Mhm. You already
and
had it in your mind. You already had that vision.
yeah, and I
Mhm.
think like
Mhm.
with writing further, taking writing further than that, now more recently, it's like
Yeah.
I know these characters innately, like and
Right.
that's partially because they've been with me for so long. But
Mhm. Mhm.
I know exactly what Sadie Ronan looks like. I know what their apartment looks like. I know,
Right.
um, and so I think being able to fully live in a story, that was very cool and fun for me.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and then sort of channeling, because in that very first instance, I'm living in a real story,
Right.
and um, now I realize, oh well, like all of those games that we would make up and we would play, like when we were mermaids and princesses and whatever, that can actually that can go onto a page, that can go into a Google Doc, and that
Mhm.
it'll come together to
Yeah.
make something. But I
Right.
think just, and also like my main complaint all of middle school and high school was we only ever write boring things in class. Like we never,
Yeah.
if we could just do something fun and
Right.
where we get to like, have an actual voice that isn't just an MLA format. I
Right.
think a
And
lot
isn't
of
just like regurgitating what an author, what someone else already thought of.
yeah.
Mhm.
I think a
Mhm.
lot of kids would enjoy writing more if that was
Mhm.
part of it. Um,
Mhm.
and if in their essays, if in an opinion piece they could get to be snarky and funny and whatever, they would
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
have a better time doing it. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I think
yeah.
so too, Grace. And I love we've had some comments and we have some really positive support right now. I don't know if you can see from Emily, from Carrie, from Melissa. Thank you all for your inspiration and supporting Grace. And we're so proud of you, Grace. And I think something interesting that you said a couple of minutes ago, as far as you remember being in that fourth grade classroom, or you remember being with your uncle, and you might not remember like right now going back in time, like the specificity, the details, the assignments, but what I'm hearing from you is there was like a really positive feeling. There's a really positive energy. And that's what a lot of people say, right? You might not remember what people said to you or specifically what you did, but you remember how they made you feel. And then furthermore, I'm hearing you say, kids today, you're sitting in a classroom and it's just so sad, especially a classroom like English that's supposed to spark creativity, and it's just flat. And how
Yeah.
disheartening that is, because that's the space. That's the space that helps move us forward, that helps us expand, that you've been able to. And I think it's so wonderful and unique because you haven't had it all the time in class. And you've been able to do that on your own, Grace. I mean, it's truly, I know you laugh, but it's truly remarkable. And Grace, can you just tell us, maybe just like a minute or two about your actual book? And do you have a copy
Oh,
of
yeah.
All the President's Men for our viewers? Can
This
you
is
show us and just give us, we don't have to, thank you. If you wanted to read a little bit, I know this isn't the longest live today, but give us a snapshot of the book. If there is a
um
line or two you wanted to read, go right ahead.
let's see. Well, so All the President's Men it actually functions as a prequel to another book that I wrote called The President's Daughter. Um, and this sort of came about because I decided that I wanted to do a series of blog posts, and then I put them all together and I was like, well, this like could kind of be a novella. And then going through it further, if my like crazy that'll probably never happen dream is that hopefully someday it'll get to be translated to the screen. So I was thinking about, well, I'd have to add in some material if I wanted it to be, a TV show or a movie or something. It's like, well, so I started thinking about, what would I add? And I'm like, well, that's actually kind of good stuff. Maybe I should put that in the book. um, and it, ended up becoming a full novel. Um, but it functions as a prequel to a book called The President's Daughter, which follows the Ronin for America campaign and two teenage girls and their kind of unique ties to it. And one of them, it happens that her dad is running for president. And so this is sort of like the backstory of how they recruited all their senior staff members, how how do you tell your family that you're running for president? How do you tell your wife? How do your kids cope with that? And so one of my favorite things is that any story told from first person perspective is told by a kid or a teenager. And then all
Mm-hmm.
of the other ones are from third person. And it actually ends on the prologue. The epilogue of All the President's Men is the prologue of The President's Daughter. And there definitely, I think, is a theme of like interconnectedness and like everybody somehow, like you're never really more than like 3 to 5 degrees of separation away from
Love that.
someone.
Because it's so
Um,
true.
and so that's how all of these people get recruited for this campaign. And that's how, you know, there's one of like my favorite scenes in it is when this journalist who you think is totally random pitches this magazine column called The President's Daughter, which ends up being very relevant in the book The President's Daughter. And you later find out that the head of the magazine, the editor who she's pitching it to, her daughter then goes to work on the campaign. And so that's how they're connected. And then, the guy that Reese McNeil runs into in the coffee shop is Will Ronan, who's on his way to his brother's office to get asked to be on the campaign.
Yes.
And so it's actually the last line of the book. And it's when 15-year-old Kate Beckham is asking her mom, her mom is a professor of political science at Georgetown University. And so she's very tuned into all of the goings on in politics. And she's making Kate watch the Democratic National Convention. And Kate sees these kids that are her own age. And it's really exciting for her to see somebody, to see herself up there, not just on TV, but in a realm, in the political realm, which I think sometimes younger people can be excluded from by virtue of just how old they are.
Right.
But then it also gets exciting because she's a teenager in DC, and it's, is she going to go to Georgetown Prep? Is she going to go to Sidwell Friends? Like, where, and so she asks her mom, what do you think the odds are of Sadie Ronan, who her dad's already the underdog in this race? What are the odds that they win this? And she ends up going to high school with me. And her mom says, I don't want to rain on your parade, Kate, but the odds of Sadie Ronan at the prep are slim to none. And then Kate says to just the audience, here's the thing about odds I think we often forget. If the odds are slim to none, by technicality, the odds are still there. It kind of sets up their whole arc of, they become friends, and Kate writes a magazine column about her, and it's very easy to.
Oh, Grace, it's wonderful. It's lovely. I wish you could see the smile on your face right now, just describing your characters, and you know them so well. And, I strongly encourage, everyone who watches this now, watching this on the replay, to grab a copy on Amazon, and to please leave a comment, to please leave a positive comment on Amazon, because I know that really is super helpful. And, Grace, on last weekend, when you spoke in front of a wonderful group and read a lot, you did such a great job. I mean, Grace, I was listening to you thinking to myself, okay, is this a 30-year experienced English teacher or like professional reader? Like truly, truly came alive. I didn't want you to stop. And you made a comment on Saturday, and I loved it so much. I wrote it down. I usually am handwriting. I didn't have that. I put it in my phone, and I felt so badly because I didn't want anyone to think I was like texting with me. But you said, you know what, everyone, this is truly a quote, happy accident, unquote. And when you were just reading from your book, my question that popped into my brain is how can we help kids more, create their own happy accidents? Like, what tips do you have when writing, blocks happen, or when that, that fear in between our two ears in our brain just starts to creep in? How can, how have you worked through challenges? What can parents watching this right now just write down and take away and share with their own kids who have like a difficult time writing a 2-page double-spaced, lit analysis on Macbeth? Like, what tips do you have to help push through?
I think you talk about writing blocks and, fear in your own mind. I think right now that's sort of what I'm experiencing is I wish it could be like, oh, I'm so relieved that it's, out in the world. And like, no, this is terrifying, because now for the first time, I've had a blog for a couple of years, but I'm not as consistent, I think, as I would like to be posting on there. Mostly because it started as like a blog, and then sort of it was hard to navigate what I wanted it to be. And then when I sort of realized that fiction is sort of my niche, but also on top of that, it's like, high school is a lot, and applying to college is a lot. And so, no, this is kind of like the first time that anyone's sort of like paid attention to my writing in a like really significant way.
Yeah.
And so, that's great, but it's also super intimidating.
Right.
And then, even myself, like I haven't really put pen to paper in any significant way in a while. I've written things here and there, and I think like writing can also be such a coping mechanism for people.
Yes.
And so if your kid, like if that's their thing, really encourage that, because I think it can be, it can be your saving grace sometimes. And
Yes.
even if it's not, journaling, like my friends and I have developed an entire concept for a television show based on our high school experience.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
it's carried over into our life where it's like, when something kind of crappy happens to us, one of the ways that we can end up laughing about it is me like, man, this is gonna be great in chaos theory.
Yeah. No, I can really, and actually, Grace, I don't even know if you realize, but I think what I've picked up on is you've said a couple of things here that I really love so much. Is first of all, don't you think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
And
If you're writing, if you have blocks, if you're downing yourself, okay. Even now, you're getting a little more publicity, attention. All right. And the minute we say, like, we recognize that, and it just is, kind of that fear starts to take a back seat to you growing into, what you really love, and helping others through your natural skills. And the other like really tactical thing I picked up on from you is, and I got it, and I'm living it. It's just consistency. It's discipline. And perhaps even if you don't feel like finishing that chapter or writing that conclusion for that Macbeth lit analysis essay, just do it. Just be consistent. Carve out time. Just don't beat yourself up if you missed a writing session or you're late to the game. That's okay. So really bringing your name in here, having grace with yourself.
Definitely. I think too, like, there's in the school environment, I don't know. How do I say this?
It can be stifling if you're creative. It can be stifling,
I think
right?
for sure. And one of the things they talk about even in here is someone is referred to as a great political mind. And so, there's sort of an internal dialogue of like, we appreciate brilliance when it is presented to us in some scientific discovery and some huge mathematical equation, and they got this astronomical score on their SAT. And I was never, ever that kid. And I think you don't have to be that kid to do something cool or even just something that you like doing. And what's really hard for, I think, kids who are so involved in school is that the conclusion paragraph on my essay about Macbeth always and forever took precedent over writing something that I thought was fun. And did that, were there sometimes where I'd be sitting in the back of the class being like, screw this, I'm gonna do my own thing. Yeah, that happened too. I'm no poster child for getting things,
Right.
Yeah, I'm not.
But perhaps it's been a blessing, Grace, if you think about it. And we'll wrap this up in a couple of minutes. Perhaps what I'm hearing from you is truly from your own story, words of encouragement for students who are sitting in the back of that classroom or the front of the classroom and trying hard and realizing, you know what, I don't have the highest SAT, ACT scores, or I just am not interested in this right now. Yes, I'll do it. And the thing, and I'm hearing from you, is questioning what's glorified, what gets fame, when it doesn't align with your own skills. And perhaps that's the best gift ever, even though at the time when you're 13, 14, 15 years old, as opposed to you being in college now, you've gotten through it. At the time, it's really hard, right? But when things are hard, that's when beauty starts to grow. And to me, that's truly where your own story, starts to shine here, and your own gifts, and you listen to yourself and you listen to your heart, and you've really leaned into and pursued this. And will you one more time tell everyone where they can get a copy of your book? Because I know when parents watch this on the replay, they're going to want to go and grab it. So tell us, we'll put the name again. I'm going to post this in the comments.
Yeah, so it's called All the President's Men. It looks like this.
Awesome.
And it's available on Amazon.com. It's through Kindle Direct Publishing. So Amazon is the only place you can get it.
Awesome. Great. That's awesome. And then, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm on social media. You can probably find me. It's not.
What is your Instagram handle, Grace?
Instagram, Grace K Gilrane. Just the same thing that's on the screen right now. Gilrane.
Okay. I'll put it in the comments for everyone. And I have like 5 more questions. And I know the way you and I take a deep dive into questions, we literally would be here for 3 hours easy. So I'm going to put those on hold for, interview with Grace take 2. So I hope you would love to join me again and share your words of wisdom. And I really do have some questions to follow up with you. But, as we wrap this up here, Grace, thank you so much for your time today and your willingness to do this. And I know you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and I appreciate it. And you actually really are a natural on camera. So, Grace, here's the thing. I mean, I want you to think back, a few years to sitting in some of those stale classrooms, and just, your mind's going out the window. And I was there too. I would literally sometimes, Grace, oh, thank you. And Carrie just added your Twitter account. That's fabulous. I want you to think of some of those kids, right? 13, 14, 15, 16, until they're out of high school and they're bored and they're spinning with their list of the things to do. And am I doing things the right way? What final words of wisdom, what final bits of inspiration, whether it's something tactical with writing or just something that you've really held on to, that you could leave our audience as we wrap this up today with, and until next time?
I think, you talk about being in those stale classrooms, and everything that happens to you in your life can be used as material. I'm not even there's the amount of characters in here that my friends will read it and be like, the love interest is named after that guy. And like, don't worry about it.
But Grace, that's brilliant. That's so interesting. I mean, I love that. Yeah.
And then I also remember going to like family Christmas parties, and everyone wants to know where you want to go to college. And then I had like my one aunt who she was like, so like, what are you doing? Like, what are you working on? And I was like, well, I think I'm going to write a book. She was like, oh, that's so cool. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of a crazy idea. And like, it's crazy. She's like, well, the crazy ideas are always the best ones. And I was like, you're right. So yeah, it's just because it's not, what your high school or if you want to pursue something creative, go for it.
Go for it. Yeah, no, that's lovely. That's wonderful. And you can even think about that, Grace. Like basically what you're saying is, everything that happens to you, especially if there's a pain point, is an opportunity, not only for your own growth, but to help other people.
Yeah.
Think of this in so many areas of people's lives, right? They wanted to lose weight, and they've tried, 17 different diets, and something worked for them. And they're like, how many thousands of people out there could I help? Or students out there, so bored, interesting things happening to them, problem points. Why not document it? You're creative, write stories about it. Yeah. Other kids read about it. There's a connection there, and you're helping make their lives better, which, Grace, you already have. And this is just the beginning. And I'm honored to know you and to be a part of it. So thank you so much for joining us today. And viewers now and viewers watching this on the replay, and there will be a lot, you can see in the comments where you can grab a copy of Grace's work, and Grace is so willing to answer any questions. You can get a hold of her here on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter, and I'll drop your email in later also, Grace, if that is okay with you. So thank you so much, and it's not goodbye, it's see you next time. Thanks, Grace. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.